Hello. You may be wondering why I'm wearing cycling kit. That's because today we are doing some testing. I have long dismissed the Fizik Arione due to its lack of pressure relief and the fact that it's too long and all these kinds of things. But the premise of today's video is to understand, can you make this saddle comfortable? I mean, the reality is I rode this for over a decade and never really had any problems with it, apart from the occasional saddle sore on longer rides. But is it gonna be any better or worse than my beloved Italia Boost SLR? The jig is currently set up to the position that I recently rode the length of Thailand on. So I didn't have a single problem. You know, I did 1,500 miles over 3 weeks. And so no knee pain, neck and shoulder issues, hand problems, foot problems, none of that. No saddle issues either, more importantly. And we are going to explore, using pressure mapping, the differences that positional interventions make to saddle pressure and pressure distribution, and also to try and understand whether or not I can ride one of these with any amount of comfort. So, let's get to it. Right, away we go. Having done 1,500 miles in this position, it feels fairly familiar. What we're normally looking for in a saddle interaction is two skeletal landmarks, and they want to be relatively balanced from left to right. We don't want any soft tissue pressure, specifically with women, but it's the case with men as well. And I guess we're really looking for it to be fairly unobtrusive. So it shouldn't be the loudest part of your interaction with the bike. If I was to ask you which is the aspect of the bike interaction you can feel the most, it should be quite difficult to answer. Rather than, oh, I've got loads of weight on my hands, or oh, my saddle feels like I'm being kicked in the genitals, or my feet are on fire, or whatever it is. Anyway, so we've taken a pressure mapping result, and let's see what the results yield. The numbers are microbars, they're barometric pressure, and what we are looking for in a saddle interaction, or what we're looking for from this image, is 2 roundels of pressure, more or less what we have here, and no pressure through the nose. Again, more or less what we have here. So we've got 839 microbars on the left-hand side, 894 on the right, which is, to be honest with you, is an acceptable amount. What we're looking for here is not a microbar difference, but a percentage difference. It's about 5%, which is fine. It's when you have problems of 20, 30, 40% differences that you're then going to start causing problems. Furthermore, we are, as I alluded to a minute ago, we are also looking for no pressure in the nose area of the saddle, which makes me wonder, what happens if we knock the saddle up a bit? Let's go back to my old saddle height from 10 years ago. So, I immediately, I can't believe I used to ride this, although I never rode this saddle at this height. So my saddle height's 69 centimeters, pretty much on the button. I run about 5.5 centimeters setback with a Boost SLR, and I can immediately, unsurprisingly, feel a bigger interaction with the nose of the saddle. And this feels like much harder work. Power's gone down as well. So this is why I have such a bee in my bonnet about saddle height. What will be interesting though is, what does the pressure mat say? Right, this is going to be a good video. This is why I've got a bee in my bonnet about saddle height. Everything else has remained exactly the same, apart from the drop. I've put the saddle 30mm higher, and I haven't changed the front of the bike. But we've gone from sort of 800 microbars at the back of the saddle to over 1,000 at the front of the saddle. And this is all just from raising the saddle height, and it results in an over-interaction with the nose. This is on the grounds that the nose of the saddle is closer to the bottom bracket and the cranks and the pedals than the tail of the saddle is. So this is why, although some people might look at me as an individual at 5'10", think 69 centimeters is quite a low saddle height. And it is, because I've got stumpy little legs and tiny little fat feet. But this is the reason why I've set my saddle height based on my interaction with the saddle. This is why I can be a fat, lazy git and I can go and ride a bike across the continent and not have any problems. So there we have it. Proof is in the pudding. Pressure mapping does not lie. The other thing to consider here is that there is a much more erratic movement pattern here. This red line denotes pelvic movement. In this case, it's suggesting the pelvis is now askew. Also, you can see it's a little bit like some people's thought process. Whereas here, it's much more consistent. It's a left to right movement. Now, what happens if we put the dreaded Arione on? Right. Increase this resistance again.
1 million.
So, I just had lunch and was worried I might throw my lunch up, but actually with this saddle, I worry I might throw my testicles up. Whoa. Okay. As we suspected. So, what's going on here? First and foremost, the pressure is reduced, but that's not necessarily a good thing, because in the realm of bike fitting, when you reduce pressure, it doesn't just disappear into the ether, it gets redistributed somewhere else. So in this case, what has happened and what did happen is that as you raise the saddle height, the pressure comes off the saddle but goes into the front of the bike. So cue numb hands, neck and shoulder issues, all of this kind of stuff. But we're sticking on saddles today. And what this has created, as you can see, is that there's this hot spot in the middle of the saddle now, namely where my perineum is, which is not an area of your anatomy that you want to be loaded by a hard piece of foam. There is also a bit of an imbalance in the pressure distribution, but I mean, to be honest with you, it's actually a little bit closer now, but the main takeaway here is that we've now got this bank of pressure across the left-hand side of the saddle, and it is also located a lot more centrally, which is going to suggest to us that we're going to have a lot more soft tissue pressure, which is exactly what we don't want, because soft tissue is just not as adept at carrying load as the skeleton is. We call them sit bones for a reason, because you can sit on them. You want that skeletal landmark to be loaded. It should feel as though it's the landmark that you'd feel if you sat on a wooden bench for a long time. So that's kind of what we're looking for, or potentially the pubic rami, which is a little bit further forward. Depends on the rider's pelvic orientation. What happens when we drop it though? One of the things that we wanted to try and explore in this video is, can we make a suboptimal saddle comfortable? It's a bit of an unfair experiment because I reckon I can ride one of these reasonably comfortably. And also you have to consider that comfort always has a time value attached to it. And we're doing this in relatively short snippets, but pressure doesn't lie. And what happens is that pressure will only build over time. So, I mean, immediately this feels a lot more comfortable, but there's still more soft tissue interaction than I think I would like. And a lot of that is derived from the fact that this saddle just simply doesn't have a pressure relief channel. And as I touched on earlier, as human beings, we weren't intended to sit on our genitals on hard pieces of foam. Be interesting to get a reading from this. So, I mean, again, this backs up exactly what we've been talking about in the excessive saddle height is the root of all evil. And in this case, you can see that we've got, a decent distribution of pressure from left to right, but there's still this kind of hot spot in the middle that's become a sort of tripod of interaction. And again, that's not really what we're looking for. We're looking for two distinct skeletal landmarks. But I'll admit that this felt relatively comfortable. I don't think I'd want to ride it for a long period of time, but yeah, one of the benefits of the Arione is that it is a very forgiving saddle of poor positions, because you can sit on it with a reasonable spectrum of positions. You can sit right on the nose of it with seemingly no problems whatsoever, because the nose is quite long and flat. But as I say, it's really a good saddle at masking poor positions. The Selitalia, a lot of people, we've seen these comments in the comment section that people say, oh, I tried one of these and it cut into ribbons. Is it harsh to say that it's probably because your position is because the saddle's bad? But that's usually the case though. You set one of these 30, 40 mil too high, as we saw, it's gonna cause you problems. So this is all the more reason to have Bikefit before you go out and buy expensive saddles. I mean, these are 200 quid. So, you know, it represents a lot of money wasted and a lot of financial risk by not comparative testing and not testing these things before you buy them. Try before you buy and all that. It is very important to be the master of technology, not a slave to it. There are quite a lot of people out there using this sort of system, and they use it to be led on how they set the bike up. And it's important to understand that this pressure mapping system does not get the result. It's knowledge and understanding and observation and feedback that gets the result. It has transformed and improved the way that we fit people here at Bicycle, but it is not the be all and end all. Just because somebody has this pressure mapping system does not mean that they're going to get you on the perfect saddle. It also isn't the saddle selection system that it's often touted as. This actually gives a much greater insight, as we've seen today, as to how positional interventions will influence saddle interaction. So just be very aware if somebody says, oh, this pressure map result says it's better, and you aren't more comfortable, red flag. You have to cross-reference it with rider feedback, a bit of experience, and some observation as well. So I think that pretty much sums up the fact that you can make a poor saddle in the right position reasonably comfortable. It might not be for the long term, but you can certainly make improvements just with positional interventions. This kind of backs up the fact that saddle selection is nowhere near as subjective as it's made out to be. Furthermore, a more seasoned rider like myself, who's been riding for quite a long time, is generally less susceptible to pain and discomfort anyway, because my ass has taken a beating over the years, in the words of the great Jim Carrey. You can make a suboptimal saddle reasonably comfortable with good bike fit. So, I hope you've enjoyed watching this and you found it interesting. I mean, I know I certainly have, because I haven't pressure mapped myself in a long time. We are going to do more of this sort of content using pressure mapping. We're also going to get another exciting piece of equipment that I haven't bought yet. And we are going to test 3D saddles against their traditional counterparts, which I think might be an interesting one. But if you think that there is an interesting experiment that we can do inside our little crazy laboratory, then pop a comment in the comment section below. If you'd like to have your fit looked at by either myself or any of our fitters here, we have 4 other fitters, then there are links in the description below. Please don't forget to like, comment and subscribe if you haven't, and we look forward to seeing you in the next one.